Marcus Richardson stood frozen in his mansion's marble foyer, watching security footage that would shatter everything he thought he knew about trust, betrayal, and the woman who'd been cleaning his house for 8 months. But then the image on his screen showed something impossible. Elena Santos hurried down the front steps, shopping bags clutched in both hands, her dark hair catching the Seattle evening light. Marcus's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Elena, wait." She turned back, and for just a moment, Marcus saw something flicker across her face. Fear, guilt. "Yes, Mr. Richardson. Did I forget something?" Marcus studied her carefully, searching for the signs he'd learned to recognize after being burned by 3 previous housekeepers and 2 girlfriends who'd walked away with more than just memories. "Those bags, what's in them?" Elena's grip tightened on the handles. "Just some groceries I picked up during lunch." "Is there a problem? You've been leaving early a lot lately." "Family emergencies, you said." "My mother is sick. I've told you this." Marcus stepped closer, his businessman's instincts screaming warnings. "And you need more money. I heard you on the phone yesterday." Elena's cheeks flushed. "I don't understand what you're asking me." "I'm not asking, I'm telling you. I know something's going on. Here's what's worse than discovering your employee might be stealing from you. It's the moment you realize you might be falling for them anyway." For a tense moment, they stood in silence. Elena adjusted her bags and lifted her chin with a dignity that caught Marcus off guard. "If you don't trust me, Mr. Richardson, perhaps you should find someone else to clean your house." She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing on the pavement. Marcus watched her disappear around the corner, his jaw clenched, his world about to change in ways he never saw coming. But then something happened that night that would reveal the truth about Elena Santos. Something that would force Marcus to confront the difference between protecting yourself and destroying the best thing that ever happened to you. Back inside his sterile mansion, Marcus poured himself a scotch and stared out at the Seattle skyline. The house felt like a fortress, which was exactly how he'd designed it after learning that money made everyone a potential enemy. His phone buzzed. David Park, his assistant, and only real friend. "Any luck with the background check on Elena?" Marcus asked without greeting. "Clean as a whistle." "But Marcus, you're being paranoid again. She's worked for you for 8 months, without incident. Remember Jennifer? Clean background, too. Still walked away with my grandmother's jewelry. That was 3 housekeepers ago, and 2 girlfriends ago. You can't live like this forever." Marcus ended the call and walked to his home office. Security monitors showed empty hallways and pristine rooms. Everything in its place. Everything controlled. Everything lonely. He opened his laptop and pulled up Elena's employment file. Elena Santos, 29. References checked, Social Security verified. But there were gaps. Evening activities unaccounted for. That phone call yesterday in rapid Spanish, where he'd caught the words, "Más dinero," and "necesita más." Just then, Marcus remembered something that made his blood run cold. The receipt he'd found in her jacket pocket when he'd offered to hang it up. $500 wired to Honduras. When he'd asked about it, she'd stammered something about family and quickly changed the subject. Marcus pulled up his security footage from the past week. There was Elena arriving at 8, working efficiently through his house. But at lunch, she'd spent 20 minutes browsing expensive jewelry websites on her phone. Diamond earrings, tennis bracelets. Things that cost more than he paid her in 6 months. The pieces formed a familiar pattern. They always started small. Arriving late, leaving early, mysterious phone calls. Then came the bigger moves. Missing items, forged checks, empty bank accounts. His phone buzzed with a text, "Working late tonight. Don't wait up, Elena. Marcus set down his glass. Working late where? Doing what? He'd given her the evening off. He grabbed his keys and headed for the garage. His black Mercedes would blend into Seattle traffic perfectly. Elena took the bus. He'd followed that routine before, telling himself it was to ensure she got home safely. But tonight, he'd find out where she really went after work. You won't believe what happened next. Because what Marcus discovered that night wasn't just about Elena's secret. It was about the kind of person he'd become, and whether it was too late to change. The evening was crisp, and Marcus felt his heart rate increase as he drove toward Elena's usual bus stop. He told himself this was about protecting his assets, about learning from past mistakes, about being smart instead of naive. But as he spotted Elena's dark braid boarding the 47 bus, shopping bag still in her hands, Marcus wondered if he was about to uncover another betrayal, or if he was finally losing his mind to paranoia. Either way, tonight he'd know the truth. Marcus kept 3 cars back as the bus wound through Seattle's evening traffic. His hands gripped the steering wheel, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool October air. Every red light felt like an eternity as he watched Elena's silhouette through the bus windows. The bus stopped in Pioneer Square, and Elena stepped off, still carrying those shopping bags. Marcus parked across the street and watched her walk toward a rundown building with faded Spanish lettering on the front. His pulse quickened. This was it. The moment he'd catch her in whatever scheme she was running. Elena pushed through glass doors, beneath a sign that read Centro Esperanza. Marcus frowned. A community center. He crept closer, staying in the shadows. Through the large windows, he could see Elena setting down her bags and embracing an elderly woman. Then she moved to the front of a room filled with about 20 older adults, all holding notebooks and pencils. "Good evening, everyone." Elena's voice carried through the thin walls. "Tonight, we're going to practice ordering food at restaurants." Marcus blinked. She was teaching. For the next hour, he watched Elena patiently help elderly immigrants practice English phrases. She smiled more in those 60 minutes than he'd seen in 8 months of working for him. When a man struggled with pronunciation, she knelt beside his chair and gently corrected him. When a woman looked frustrated, Elena squeezed her shoulder and encouraged her in Spanish. After class, Elena unpacked her shopping bags, groceries, but not for herself. Sandwich supplies, fruit, crackers. She made plates of food for her students, chatting with them as they ate. Here's what's worse than discovering your employee isn't stealing from you. It's realizing you've become the kind of person who assumes the worst about genuine goodness. Marcus stumbled backward, his world tilting. The $500 wire transfer, the early departures, the phone call about needing more money. It all made sense now, but not the way he'd expected. He drove home in a daze. Elena's joyful face burned into his memory. In his office, he researched the Esperanza Community Center online. A non-profit serving Seattle's immigrant community. English classes, legal aid, job training, childcare. All run on donations and volunteers. The center's website showed photos of Elena teaching, Elena organizing food drives, Elena reading to children. In every picture, she glowed with purpose. Marcus found the center's financial reports. They were struggling, operating month to month on small donations. The building needed repairs. Programs were being cut. He thought about Elena working 3 jobs, his house, a cleaning service downtown, and weekend shifts at a grocery store. Also, she could afford to volunteer here every night, feeding people from her own pocket. His phone rang. David again. "Find anything interesting in your spy mission?" Marcus rubbed his face. "I'm an idiot." "What happened?" "She's not stealing from me. She's good, David. actually good. The money she sends home, it's for her mother's medical bills. The early departures, she volunteers at an immigrant center every night. The expensive jewelry she was looking at, probably dreaming like everyone else. Silence on the other end. Then David's gentle voice. When's the last time you met someone genuinely good? I don't think I ever have. But then Marcus realized something that changed everything. For the first time in years, his money could actually matter. Not for protecting himself, but for protecting something beautiful. The next morning, Marcus found himself timing his coffee break to coincide with Elena's arrival. She seemed surprised to see him in the kitchen. Good morning, Mr. Richardson. I'll get out of your way. Actually, could you join me? I'd like to hear about your evening classes. Elena froze, a dish towel in her hands. My what? Your volunteer work. Teaching English. Her face went pale. I don't know what you mean. Elena. Marcus sat down his mug. I followed you last night. She sank into a chair, looking defeated. Are you going to fire me? Fire you? Why would I fire you? Because I lied about working late, because I used my lunch break to buy food for the center instead of eating, because I've been distracted thinking about my students when I should be focused on your house. Marcus stared at this woman who thought compassion was a firing offense. Tell me about them, your students. Elena looked up cautiously. They're mostly elderly. Some have been here for decades, but never learned English properly. Maria is 73 and wants to talk to her doctor without her granddaughter translating. Carlos worked construction for 40 years but can't read safety signs. They're proud people who just need a chance. As Elena talked, her face transformed. The quiet, careful housekeeper disappeared, replaced by someone passionate and alive. The center might close, she continued. We can barely afford rent. I try to help with supplies when I can, but... She gestured helplessly. That afternoon, Marcus made an anonymous donation to the Esperanza Community Center. $50,000. Enough to keep them running for months. He used a shell company and fake name, ensuring it couldn't be traced back to him. But as he submitted the donation, Marcus realized something had shifted inside him. For the first time in years, his money felt useful. Just then, something happened that would change the course of both their lives forever. Someone donated $50,000. Elena burst into the kitchen the next morning, her eyes bright with excitement. Can you believe it? The center is saved. Marcus looked up from his coffee, hiding his smile. That's wonderful news. Any idea who? Anonymous. They just said they believed in our mission. Elena practically bounced as she unpacked her cleaning supplies. We can fix the heater, buy new textbooks, maybe even start a computer class. Maria cried when I told her. Watching Elena's joy, Marcus felt something warm unfold in his chest. When was the last time he'd made someone this happy? Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself inventing reasons to be home during Elena's work hours. He'd emerge from his office needing coffee, just as she was dusting the living room. He'd remember urgent emails to send from the kitchen while she prepared his lunch. Their conversations grew longer and more personal. Elena told him about her thesis on economic inequality, her dreams of becoming a social worker, her homesickness for Honduras. Marcus shared carefully selected stories about his business, his travels, his loneliness in the big house. Don't you have family? Elena asked one November afternoon as she arranged fresh flowers in his dining room. My parents died when I was 22. Car accident. Elena's hands stilled. I'm sorry, that must have been terrible. It was. But it taught me to be self-reliant. Marcus paused, then added quietly, maybe too self-reliant. Family isn't just blood, Elena said gently. At the center, we're all family. Mrs. Chen brings soup for everyone. Mr. Rodriguez fixes things without being asked. We take care of each other. Marcus envied that sense of belonging. His world consisted of business associates, employees, and people who wanted something from him. Even David, his closest friend, was technically on his payroll. In December, Marcus made another anonymous donation to the center. Computers for the new lab Elena had mentioned. He watched through news reports as the community celebrated, Elena beaming as she cut the ribbon. You seem different lately, David observed during their weekly meeting. Happier, do I? You're smiling more, and you haven't run a background check on anyone in weeks. Marcus deflected with business talk, but David was right. The constant suspicion that had plagued him for years felt less urgent. Elena's presence in his house brought warmth he hadn't realized he'd been missing. One January morning, Marcus found Elena at his kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks and papers. Sorry, Mr. Richardson, I came early to make up time. I have a thesis meeting later. What's your thesis about? Elena's face lit up. Barriers to social mobility in immigrant communities. I'm researching how language access, job training, and community support can break cycles of poverty. Marcus sat down across from her, genuinely interested. What have you found? For the next hour, Elena explained her research with passion and intelligence that impressed him. She talked about systemic inequalities, about families working multiple jobs but still struggling, about the dignity of people who just needed opportunity. Most people don't see it, she said. They see someone cleaning their house or working in a restaurant and assume that's all they're capable of. But Carlos, he was an engineer in El Salvador. Isabella ran her own bakery. They're brilliant people reduced to survival jobs because their credentials don't transfer. Marcus felt a stab of guilt, remembering his own assumptions about Elena. Want to change that, she continued. Create programs that recognize people's skills, help them build on what they already know, instead of starting from zero. That's incredible work, Elena, she blushed. It's just research. Probably won't change anything. Don't say that. You're already changing things at the center. Their eyes met across the table, and Marcus felt something shift between them. Elena looked away first, gathering her papers. I should get to work. That afternoon, Marcus made a decision. Elena, I'd like to offer you a full-time position. Better salary, health benefits, paid vacation. You'd basically manage the household, coordinate with other staff, handle my schedule, that sort of thing. Elena stared at him. That's very generous, but I don't understand. You barely trust me to dust your books. I trust you, Marcus said, and realized he meant it. You're intelligent, responsible, and you care about doing things right. The salary would be enough to help your mother and pay for school. Elena bit her lip. Can I think about it? Of course. But Marcus could see the conflict in her eyes. More money meant security for her family, but it also meant less time for the center, less time for her studies, less time for the work that made her come alive. A week later, Elena found him in his office. I've decided about the job offer, Marcus looked up from his computer, heart racing. And I'm grateful, Mr. Richardson, really, but I can't accept. Why not? Elena took a deep breath. Because I'd be living someone else's dream instead of my own. The center needs me. My studies matter to me. And honestly, she met his eyes. I've fallen in love with someone impossible. And taking this job would make me feel like I'm betraying that feeling. Marcus felt the world tilt. Someone impossible. Someone who represents everything I want to do with my life. Someone who makes me want to be better, do more, help people. But our worlds are too different. It could never work. Marcus's heart hammered. Elena, I should go, she said quickly. This is too personal. I'm sorry. As Elena hurried out, Marcus stared after her, stunned. She was in love with someone else. Someone who inspired her. Someone who shared her values. Someone who wasn't him. For the first time since his parents died, Marcus felt his heart truly break. But then fate intervened in a way that would reveal the truth about everything. Marcus spent the weekend in his office, staring at spreadsheets but seeing nothing. Elena loved someone else. Someone impossible who inspired her to help people. Probably another volunteer at the center. Someone young, idealistic. Someone who understood her world. Monday morning, Elena arrived as usual, but the easy warmth between them was gone. Marcus kept their interactions brief and professional. "Good morning," he said, without looking up from his newspaper. "Good morning, Mr. Richardson." Her voice was careful, distant. The week crawled by in painful politeness. Marcus buried himself in work, taking calls in his office, eating lunch at his desk. Elena cleaned around him like a ghost, efficient and invisible. Friday afternoon, she knocked on his office door. "Mr. Richardson, I need to give you my notice." Marcus looked up, his stomach dropping. "Your notice? 2 weeks. I'm sorry for the short notice, but I need to focus on finishing my thesis. I've been accepted into a graduate program for social work, and I start my practicum in March." "I see." Marcus kept his voice level. "Congratulations. That's quite an achievement. Thank you." Elena fidgeted with her cleaning supplies. "I'll make sure everything is perfect before I go. I can help train my replacement if you'd like." "That won't be necessary." The silence stretched between them. Elena nodded and turned to leave. "Elena," she paused at the door. "I'm proud of you. What you're doing, it matters." Her shoulders sagged slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Richardson. That means more than you know." The next 2 weeks were torture. Marcus found himself memorizing Elena's routines, knowing each day brought him closer to losing her completely. He helped her prepare for job interviews, writing glowing recommendation letters that felt like love letters he'd never send. The Seattle Community Services office called. He told her Wednesday of her final week. "They want to schedule a second interview." Elena's face brightened. "Really? That's my dream job. Working directly with immigrant families, helping them navigate services." "You'll be perfect for it." Marcus meant it, even as his heart broke a little more. Thursday evening, Elena stayed late to finish organizing his files. Marcus brought her coffee, and found her crying quietly at his kitchen table. "What's wrong?" She wiped her eyes quickly. "Nothing, just tired, Elena." "It's stupid," she said. "I'm leaving to pursue my dreams, which is what I wanted, but I'm going to miss our talks. Feeling like someone cares about my work." Marcus sat down across from her. "Someone does care. Someone always will." Their eyes met, and for a moment, Marcus thought about telling her everything. About following her that night. About the donations. About how she'd changed his entire worldview. About how he'd fallen in love with her kindness, her passion, her brilliant mind. Instead, he said, "The person you mentioned. The impossible one. Have you told him how you feel?" Elena shook her head. "What's the point? We're from different worlds. He'd never see me as anything more than," she gestured helplessly, "than what I am. Someone who cleans houses and comes from nothing." "Elena, you're not nothing. You're extraordinary." She smiled sadly. "You're kind to say that." Friday arrived too soon. Elena finished her final tasks and packed her supplies. Marcus had prepared an envelope with her final paycheck and a substantial bonus. Enough to cover her mother's medical expenses for a year. "This is too much," Elena said, staring at the check. "You've been invaluable to me. Consider it a graduation gift." Elena's eyes filled with tears. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep in touch. Let me know how you're doing. Of course. They stood in his entryway, neither wanting to say goodbye. Finally, Elena stepped forward and hugged him briefly. Thank you for everything, Mr. Richardson. You've been more than an employer. You've been a friend. Take care of yourself, Elena. After she left, Marcus walked through his house. Everything was spotless, perfectly organized, and completely empty. He'd returned to his fortress, but now the walls felt like a prison. Over the next 3 months, Marcus fell back into old patterns. He hired a new housekeeper, an efficient woman named Janet who did excellent work and never lingered for conversation. He threw himself into business, closing deals and making money that felt meaningless. But he couldn't stop thinking about Elena. He continued his anonymous donations to the Esperanza Community Center, watching their programs expand. He researched Seattle community services and felt pride when he learned Elena had been hired as a social worker specializing in immigrant family services. Through David's discreet inquiries, he learned she'd completed her thesis with honors and was excelling in her new role. She'd moved to a better apartment and was able to bring her mother to Seattle for an extended visit. She's doing well, David reported over lunch. By all accounts, she loves her new job. Good, Marcus said. That's what she wanted. What about what you want? Marcus pushed food around his plate. It doesn't matter what I want. She's not married, you know. Still single. David, I'm just saying. Maybe the impossible isn't as impossible as you think. But Marcus knew better. Elena had found her path, surrounded by people who shared her passion for justice and service. She didn't need a paranoid millionaire disrupting her new life, still. When the invitation arrived for the Esperanza Community Center's annual fundraising gala, Marcus found himself staring at it for a long time. Elena would be there. The invitation mentioned she'd be receiving an award for her volunteer service. Against his better judgment, Marcus RSVP'd, yes. He told himself he just wanted to see her success, to witness her happiness from afar. But as the date approached, Marcus realized he was hoping for something more. A chance to see if the connection they'd shared had been real, or just his imagination. What happened at that gala would change everything. Because sometimes the truth has been hiding in plain sight, all along. Marcus stood in his walk-in closet, staring at rows of expensive suits. The fundraising gala was tonight, and he'd changed his mind about attending at least 6 times in the past week. You're overthinking this, David said from the doorway. It's a charity event. You go, you write a check, you leave. What if she thinks I'm stalking her? What if she's happy to see you? Marcus pulled out a navy suit. She's moved on, David. New job, new life. I'm ancient history. You won't know unless you go. Across town, Elena stood in her small apartment bathroom, applying lipstick with shaking hands. The community center's gala felt surreal. 6 months ago, she was volunteering in the evenings, after cleaning houses. Tonight, she was receiving an award for her service. You look beautiful, Mia, her mother said from the doorway. Isabella Santos had arrived from Honduras 2 weeks ago, finally. Healthy enough to travel after her surgery. I'm nervous, Mama. Why? You've earned this recognition. Elena couldn't explain that she kept hoping Marcus would somehow be there. Ridiculous, of course. Why would a tech mogul attend an immigrant community center's fundraiser? Tell me again. About this man you worked for, her mother said, settling on Elena's bed. Mama, I've told you 100 times. Humor an old woman. You always smiled when you talked about him. Elena sighed. He was kind, lonely I think. We talked about my work, my dreams. He made me feel like what I was doing mattered. And you loved him. Elena met her mother's knowing eyes in the mirror. It doesn't matter. We were from different worlds. Love doesn't care about worlds, Mia. The Esperanza Community Center had been transformed. String lights hung from the ceiling, tables draped in white linens filled the main room, and a small stage was set up for the evening's program. Elena arrived early to help with last-minute preparations. "There's our guest of honor," called Maria. The elderly woman from Elena's first English class. At 73, she now volunteered as a translator for newer immigrants. "I can't believe they're giving me an award," Elena said, adjusting a centerpiece. "You saved this place," said Carlos, the former engineer who now taught basic computer skills. "That anonymous donation came right after you started working here full-time as a volunteer. Coincidence? I think not." Elena had wondered about the timing herself. The first donation had come right after she'd mentioned the center might close. The second had appeared days after she talked about needing computers, but anonymous donors were common for non-profits. It was just good timing. Guests began arriving at 6. Elena mingled, catching up with former students and their families. The room filled with the warm chatter of multiple languages, children running between tables, and the laughter of people celebrating their community. At 7:30, Elena was greeting a family near the entrance when she saw him. Marcus stood in the doorway, scanning the room. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit, and looked as elegant and out of place as she'd expected. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Elena's breath caught. He was here. Actually here. Marcus felt his heart slam against his ribs as Elena stared at him from across the room. She looked stunning in a simple black dress, her hair pinned up. A genuine smile lighting her face as she talked with families around her. This was her world. Warm, inclusive, full of purpose. He didn't belong here, but he couldn't make himself leave. "Mr. Richardson." Marcus turned to find an elderly man approaching with a warm smile. "Carlos Mendez, Elena has told us so much about you." "She has. Of course. You were very kind to her when she worked for you. She spoke of you often." Before Marcus could respond, the evening's program began. Elena was called to the stage to receive the Volunteer of the Year award. As she accepted the small crystal plaque, Marcus felt pride swell in his chest. "This community saved me as much as I've tried to serve it," Elena said into the microphone. "When I first came to this country, I felt invisible. Here, I learned that everyone has value, everyone has something to contribute." She paused, her eyes finding Marcus in the crowd. "We also have an anonymous donor to thank. Someone whose generosity has allowed us to expand our programs and serve more families. Whoever you are, you've shown us that kindness comes from unexpected places, and sometimes angels appear when we need them most." Marcus's hands clenched in his lap. She still didn't know. After the program, Marcus stayed in his corner, watching Elena laugh with families, hug former students, and glow with the confidence of someone who'd found her calling. Several times she glanced in his direction, but she was always pulled away by well-wishers. Finally, as the evening wound down, Elena approached him. "Mr. Richardson, I can't believe you're here. Congratulations on your award. You deserve the recognition." "Thank you," Elena fidgeted with her plaque. "This is unexpected. I didn't think charity galas were your thing. They're not usually. But this cause seemed worth supporting." Before Elena could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her face brightened. "Mama, how was your doctor appointment?" She switched to Spanish, talking rapidly while Marcus waited. After a few minutes, she hung up, beaming. "Good news. The best. My mother's cancer is officially in remission. She's been living with me since her surgery, And today the doctor said she's completely healthy. Elena's eyes filled with happy tears. I've been so worried, and now, that's wonderful, Elena, you must be relieved. I am, and grateful. An anonymous benefactor helped pay for her treatment. I've been trying to find them to thank them properly. Without that help, I don't know what would have happened. Marcus felt his throat tighten. She was thanking him without knowing it, and he'd never felt more like a coward. Elena, he began, then stopped. How could he explain without sounding like he'd been manipulating her life from the shadows? What is it? Marcus looked into her warm brown eyes and made a decision that would change everything. There's something I need to tell you. But then something happened that neither of them expected. Sophia, there you are. They both turned as a young man approached, his face lighting up when he saw Elena Miguel. Elena looked confused. What are you doing here? I came to see your big night. Carlos told me about the award. Miguel glanced at Marcus, then back to Elena. Who's this? Marcus Richardson, my former employer. Elena's voice was carefully neutral. Marcus, this is Miguel Torres. He's a social worker at the children's center next door. Marcus felt his heart sink as Miguel placed a possessive hand on Elena's shoulder. The famous Mr. Richardson, Miguel said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Elena talks about you sometimes. Nothing but good things, I hope, Marcus managed. Of course, though I've been trying to convince her that the past is the past, you know. Time to focus on the future. Elena looked uncomfortable. Miguel, we should actually. Miguel interrupted, turning to Marcus. Elena and I have been talking about taking our relationship to the next level, haven't we? Queried her. Marcus felt the room spin. Elena's eyes went wide with something that looked like panic. Miguel, that's not, come on, don't be shy. We've been seeing each other for what, 2 months now? Marcus forced a smile. Well, I don't want to intrude on your evening. Elena, congratulations again. He turned to leave, but Elena caught his arm. Marcus, wait, that's not Miguel, we need to talk. But Marcus was already walking away, his heart shattered all over again. Elena had moved on. She was with someone who understood her world. Someone who shared her passion for helping others. Outside in the cool Seattle air, Marcus loosened his tie and tried to breathe. He'd been a fool to come here, a fool to think. Marcus turned to see Elena hurrying after him, her heels clicking on the pavement. You left before I could explain. You don't need to explain anything, Elena, I'm happy for you. No, you don't understand. Miguel and I aren't together. We went on a few dates, but there's nothing between us. He's persistent, but we're not a couple. Marcus studied her face. Then why didn't you correct him? Elena wrapped her arms around herself against the cool air. Because I was shocked. And because, ... double quotes, she trailed off. Because what? Because the person I told you about, the impossible one, Miguel isn't him. Marcus felt his world shift. Elena, I need to tell you something too, she said quickly. About the anonymous donor. I think I know who it is. Marcus's blood turned to ice. What do you mean? The timing was too perfect. Both donations came right after I mentioned specific needs to only one person. She stepped closer, her eyes searching. His face, it was you, wasn't it? Marcus could have denied it. Should have denied it. Instead, he found himself nodding. The center, your mother's medical bills, all of it. I'm sorry, Elena, I should have told you. Elena stared at him, processing. You've been watching my life, helping without telling me. I know how it sounds. How long have you known about my feelings for you? Marcus blinked. Your feelings for me? Elena laughed, a sound somewhere between joy and disbelief. You really don't know, do you? You're the impossible one, Marcus. You always were. The world seemed to stop spinning. I spent months falling in love with my employer, Elena continued, convincing myself it was hopeless because we were from different worlds. And all this time, you were loving me back in the only way you knew how. Marcus stepped closer. Elena, I followed you because I was paranoid and suspicious. But I fell in love with you because you showed me what it means to live with purpose. I thought you saw me as just another employee who might betray you. I saw you as everything I'd lost faith in. Goodness, honesty, someone who cared more about others than herself. They stood facing each other on the sidewalk. Years of misunderstanding, finally dissolving. We're both idiots, Elena said softly. Marcus laughed, the sound rusty from months of unhappiness, completely. So what do we do now? Marcus took her hands in his. I want to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before you answer. Elena nodded. I don't just want to date you, Elena. I want to build a life with you, a real partnership. I want to use everything I have, my money, my connections, my resources, to support the work you do. Not as charity, but as equals working toward the same goals. Elena's eyes widened. Marcus, I've learned that money is just a tool. It only matters when it's used to help people. You've shown me how to use it right. I want you to teach me more. I want to learn from you, work beside you, love you while we make the world a little better. Elena smiled through her tears. You want to be my partner in crime, fighting poverty and injustice. I want to be your partner in everything. Elena stood on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. There's one more thing, Elena said. My mother wants to meet you. Marcus grinned. Should I be nervous? Terrified? She's already decided you're too skinny and need feeding. As they walked back toward the community center, hand in hand, Marcus looked back at the photos on the walls. Immigrants learning English, families celebrating graduations, children playing in the perfect ending, as they walked back toward the community center. Hand in hand, Marcus looked at the photos on the walls, showing immigrants learning English, families celebrating graduations, and children playing in the after-school programs. You know what the best part is, Elena said, squeezing his hand. What's that? 6 months ago, I thought I was just cleaning your house. I had no idea I was actually cleaning your heart. Marcus laughed. That's terrible and perfect. 3 months later, Marcus sold his sterile mansion and moved into a smaller house in Elena's neighborhood. They converted the basement into an office for their new foundation, the Santos Richardson Initiative for Community Development. Their first project, expanding the Esperanza Community Center into a full community campus with job training, childcare, legal services, and a health clinic. I still can't believe you followed me that night, Elena said, one evening, as they reviewed grant applications together. I can't believe you thought I didn't notice you looking at jewelry websites during lunch breaks. Marcus replied, grinning. I was shopping for my mother's birthday. I know that now. But paranoid billionaires aren't known for their logical thinking. Elena laughed and curled up next to him on their couch. So what changed your mind about me? Marcus pulled her closer. You remember that first donation I made? When I saw how happy it made you, I realized something. For years, I'd been using my money like a shield, protecting myself from people who might hurt me. But with you, I wanted to use it like a bridge, connecting me to something meaningful. And now I know that the best investment I ever made wasn't in tech stocks or real estate. It was in believing that good people still exist in this world. And somehow, miraculously, one of them fell in love with me too. Elena kissed him softly. You know what I love most about this story? What? You thought you were protecting yourself from people who wanted your money, but you ended up finding someone who wanted to help you give it all away to people who really needed it. Best business decision I ever made, Marcus said, pulling her closer. Outside their window, the Seattle skyline twinkled with possibility. And for the first time in years, Marcus looked toward the future with hope instead of fear. Because sometimes, the person you're most afraid to trust turns out to be exactly the person who can teach you how to live again. And sometimes, the most impossible love story is the one that's been waiting for you all along.